My wife Vivian had an affair with Liam, the university student I sponsored, and got pregnant. My daughter Lily even bit my thigh to protect her lover, calling me useless. During my asthma attack, they tried to smother me with flowers, and Vivian, my wife, stepped on my kidney failure diagnosis, claiming I was faking illness, then kicked away my phone as I tried to call for help. Watching me nearly suffocate, pushed to my limit, I gathered evidence to reclaim the company that was rightfully mine. I manipulated her lover into donating a kidney, seizing the opportunity to sever his tendons and render him a cripple. I deliberately set her up to entertain a powerful figure, only for her to suffer a miscarriage and contract a sexually transmitted disease, STD, from the ordeal. Ultimately, she and Lily set themselves on fire to commit suicide in a rental apartment. After Vivian had Liam's child, I made sure their whole family was reunited. The day I was diagnosed with kidney failure, my wife, the CEO, and Liam, the university student I sponsored, were busy choosing a high-end birthing center. I rushed over to confront them. 6-year-old Lily shielded Liam, biting my thigh hard. "You useless man, you are not allowed to hurt my new dad." Vivian also protected Liam. "Don't even think about breaking us up. I'm already carrying his biological child. Liam and I are going overseas to get married. But don't worry, you'll always be my publicly recognized legal husband." The medical report in my hand fell to the floor, and I bit my pale lips until they bled. Vivian stomped on the report. "You wretch, how dare you try to trick me with a terminal illness." Lily stood on a chair and smashed the vase over my head. "That's for trying to fake your death and trick people. Let's see if you really die this time." But my own daughter, whom I had raised myself, knew full well that my pollen allergy could trigger a severe asthma attack. My throat immediately swelled, and I crouched on the ground, groaning in pain. Vivian kicked my phone away, stating coldly, "Trying to call 911. Tonight, your fate is in your own hands." With that, she took Liam and Lily by the hand and walked away. Later, she and Lily knelt before me, pleading for my forgiveness, but I had already married and started a new family. I lay on the floor, struggling to breathe, the sensation of dying growing stronger with each passing moment. But I refused to die like this. I struggled, crawling towards my phone. Calling emergency services was the only way I could save myself. I used all my strength, my trembling fingers shakily sliding across the screen. My shaking, weak fingers wouldn't obey me. Something that should have taken mere seconds took me a full 5 minutes to complete. The moment the call connected, tears streamed down my face. But when I arrived at the hospital, I was told that all resuscitation equipment was occupied by asthma patients. This was the city's largest hospital, and the one where I had always received treatment and follow-up care. The hospital had ample equipment. There was no way all of it could possibly be occupied, unless someone had done it on purpose. Although the medical staff had given me basic first aid on the way, my condition could still turn critical again at any moment. A nurse sighed, looking at me with sympathy. "I don't know what happened today, but asthma patients from other hospitals have all come here too. I heard it's the same situation at other hospitals. It seems like all the asthma patients in the city came to this hospital for treatment today." I felt the faint signs of another severe attack coming on, and in the distance, I saw Vivian approaching the emergency room with Lily. I lowered my head, clenching my fists. "Ethan, you truly are resourceful. You actually managed to save yourself, but it seems your luck isn't quite good enough. Today, I'm going to see just how tough you are, and if you can survive this." Lily, however, glanced at me scornfully, her voice full of resentment. "Mom, he's clearly faking it. He's had attacks so many times, when has he ever actually died? He's just trying to sow discord between you and my new dad, deliberately targeting my new dad." A grim smile twisted my lips. I couldn't believe such cold words were coming from the mouth of the daughter I had raised myself. I didn't know when, but her relationship with Liam had grown so close that she was now calling him dad. My nails dug deep into my flesh. I refused to die like this in front of them. My body's instincts were also telling me that my condition was rapidly worsening, and I urgently needed treatment. Ignoring the mockery from Vivian and Lily, I pleaded hoarsely, "Please, save me. I don't want to die." But Vivian just watched me with an amused expression, completely unmoved. "Ethan, you are still as fond of playing the victim as ever. It's just asthma. You have attacks countless times a year. How could you die so easily?" Even though my face was now pale, my lips purple, and my entire body was enveloped in a heavy aura of sickness. The nurse nearby couldn't stand it anymore, and said coldly, "Aren't you the patient's family? How can you say something so ignorant? Asthma can be fatal at any moment. As family members, you should always be alert to the patient's condition, and get them medical attention immediately." After the young nurse explained, Vivian's face grew even darker. She said, enraged, "From now on, I won't be his family anymore. Whether he lives or dies is none of my business." With that, she stormed off in anger. I watched her retreating figure in despair until she disappeared from view. My condition flared up again. At that moment, I had no strength left to fight the illness, and I closed my eyes and passed out in a daze. I thought I heard a nurse excitedly shout, He's saved. A patient with a mild condition just offered to give his treatment slot to an emergency patient. When I woke up again, I was lying in a hospital room. Vivian and Liam stood by my bedside, each holding one of Lily's small hands. Seeing me wake up, Lily scoffed and said loudly, "I told you he was faking it. He's always faking illness to gain MOMS sympathy. Actually, all his previous attacks were faked too. He even threatened me not to tell Mom." Vivian's face darkened, and she raised her hand and slapped me across the face. "How dare you lie to me? And teach Lily to lie?" My face stung with a burning pain. She had used all her strength. I didn't. I explained softly, worried that Vivian might do something to threaten my life again in her anger. I didn't know why Lily would lie and frame me. From the moment she was born, Vivian had disliked her. It was I who raised her, little by little, from a tiny infant to the child she was now. She was very afraid of Vivian, so at home, she only clung to me. She used to say that while other children had both a mom and a dad to love them, her dad gave her double the love, and she loved her dad the most. But now, the daughter who had depended on me since childhood treated me like an enemy. Seeing that I was about to explain further, Lily immediately interrupted me. She picked up the flowers from the table and threw them at my face again. I couldn't dodge in time and began to cough violently. "Mom, he's just faking it. If you don't believe me, just watch with your own eyes and see if he actually dies." Vivian watched Lily with satisfaction. Praising her, Lily became even more animated, her grip tightening. Liam was hit by the scattered petals and took 2 steps back. Seeing this, Lily stopped and quickly turned back to Liam, saying with concern, "Dad, are you okay? The petals hit you, does it hurt?" Liam smiled at her dismissively, and Lily took his large hand. "Dad, I'll show you a fun game." With that, she plucked petals from the bouquet, and, one by one, stuffed them into my mouth and nose. Then she put some petals into Liam's hand, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Dad, you try it too, it's so much fun." The two of them played joyfully, and Vivian even cheered them on from the side. They completely ignored me as I struggled on the hospital bed, gasping for air, on the verge of suffocating. Just then, the medical monitors in the room blared an alarm, and a nurse rushed in, pushing me back into the emergency room, and I, too, completely despaired of that mother and daughter. Vivian and I were childhood sweethearts, having been engaged very early on. We used to be neighbors. Then, when she was 17, both her parents died in a traffic accident. Vivian suddenly became an orphan, and all her relatives were eyeing the large sum of compensation money she received when she was most isolated and helpless. Henry and Margaret took her into our home. From then on, she lived with us, becoming a member of our family. We were already childhood sweethearts, and our bond grew even stronger after that. Henry and Margaret also noticed our feelings for each other, and after consulting her, formally arranged our engagement. We got married right after graduation, and then Henry and Margaret used all their family assets to support us in starting a business. Vivian was naturally strong-willed, and after founding the company, she became a powerful businesswoman. She didn't want to be confined to domestic life, so after Lily was born, I shifted my focus to family, leaving all company matters for her to manage alone. Henry and Margaret and I never expected her to repay our family. On the contrary, our feelings for her were genuine and heartfelt, but I never imagined that not only would she be ungrateful, but she would also humiliate me so cruelly. When I opened my eyes again in the hospital bed, I saw Henry and Margaret secretly wiping away tears by my bedside. Seeing me awake, they excitedly stood up, tears streaming down their faces. "Ethan, how are you? Are you still uncomfortable? Should Henry and Margaret call a doctor for you?" Tears instantly welled up in my eyes. In this world, Only Henry and Margaret cared about me. Henry and Margaret, I'm fine. How did you get here? The police notified us. Henry and I just found out you had another attack and were hospitalized. Why didn't you tell us about such a serious matter? Only after Henry and Margaret spoke did I realize that a nurse from the hospital had called the police. However, after the police investigated, they found that a 6-year-old girl, my own biological daughter, had caused my attack. So, they merely reprimanded Vivian, told her to discipline Lily, and then contacted Henry and Margaret to come and take care of me. Henry and Margaret were heartbroken and disappointed by Vivian, and said fiercely, "Who knew we saved an ungrateful wretch, only for her to end up harming Ethan like this? And that little ungrateful wretch, she actually acknowledged a stranger as her father. We wasted 6 years loving her." I forced a bitter smile, and tears of bitterness rolled down my cheeks. From 17 to 29, 12 years of affection had finally vanished. It was time to settle the score between us. After spending 3 days in the hospital, I went straight to the company upon discharge. I hadn't been to the company in 6 years. As soon as I entered, the receptionist stopped me. Seeing my plain attire, she looked down her nose at me. "Who are you looking for? Do you have an appointment?" "I don't need an appointment. Tell Vivian that Ethan is here to see her." The receptionist, half believing, picked up the phone and made the call, but Lily's voice came through the phone, saying Vivian was in a meeting. "Tell Lily that her dad is here." The receptionist's gaze immediately turned respectful as she relayed the message, but soon, her face fell. She glared at me fiercely, and said contemptuously, "Lily said you are not her dad. Her dad is right in the CEO's office. She also said you are just a smelly beggar, so get out now." I laughed in fury. I couldn't believe it was this difficult to enter my own company, seeing I wouldn't leave. The receptionist called the security guards. Lily gave instructions to kick this person out. My gaze darkened, and I tried to force my way in. "This company is mine. Why can't I enter?" 4 security guards swore as they pulled out their batons and struck my head several times. "The company is yours. Why don't you say the CEO's wife is yours too?" My head immediately bled profusely, and I was shoved out of the company entrance. I sat on the ground, holding my head, and laughed hysterically. I looked up and met the smug faces of Liam and Lily in the upstairs window. Lily wrapped her arms around Liam's neck and kissed his cheek. Even without hearing the sound, I could tell what she was saying to Liam from her mouth movements. She said, "Dad, I love you." I took out my phone and made 2 calls. 2 minutes later, 2 people hurried out of the company building and led me inside. "Ms. Hayes is currently meeting with some key confidentials. Why don't we seize this opportunity to find her?" I nodded. We had founded the company together, but Vivian was arrogant and unwilling to take advice, so it was always me who secretly managed her relationships with a few true confidentials. Even though I hadn't been to the company in 6 years, I knew everything about its affairs. When I proposed returning to the company, the confidentials all seemed relieved, saying I should have come back long ago. As I reached the conference room door, Liam stopped me. "Ms. Hayes is holding a meeting inside. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter, and you useless man, are certainly not allowed." I pushed him hard and was about to open the door. Liam grabbed the back of my collar, and we started fighting. The commotion outside was loud, and the conference room door opened from the inside. Vivian walked out. "Stop. What are you doing?" Vivian had someone pull us apart. She looked at the injuries on Liam's face, her eyes reddening with distress. "Ethan, why aren't you staying home? What kind of madness are you stirring up at the company? Look at what you've done to Liam. Get down on your knees and apologize to him right now." Liam leaned into her embrace, softly sniffling, but a faint smirk played on his lips. I stood ramrod straight, my gaze cold. Why should I apologize to a male homewrecker? With a loud slap, Vivian forcefully slapped me across the face in front of everyone at the company. "Because I'm the company's CEO, and you still depend on me to support you. Kneel and apologize." Just then, Lily rushed out from who knows where, jumped up, and bit down on my arm. Her face contorted from the effort, and I gritted my teeth, enduring the pain. Only when she let go did I see a bleeding wound on my arm. Her small face showed only fury as she yelled, "That's for bullying my dad. I'll bite you to death." Vivian also glared at me, shouting in a commanding tone, "Ethan, are you deaf? I told you to kneel and apologize to Liam. If you don't apologize to Liam today, Then we are getting a divorce. The warmth in my eyes faded little by little, until only coldness remained. Fine, let's divorce. Besides the divorce today, I have something big to announce. Everyone in the conference room turned to look at me, a hint of disdain on their faces. It was as if they were saying, "What audacity does a freeloader have to stand here and make a grand announcement?" Truly overestimating himself, as if I hadn't seen their gazes, I looked at Vivian and said, "While we were still married, you were with another man. I am now reclaiming my rights to the company." Everyone who heard my words gaped in surprise. They had always thought Vivian built the company from scratch, but hearing me, it seemed the company was mine. Vivian frowned, looking at me, and said with utter contempt, "Ethan, what nonsense are you spewing? I built this company from the ground up. What right do you have to dictate anything here?" With that, she looked towards the door, trying to get the security guards to remove me from the conference room. Seeing her self-righteous attitude, I secretly congratulated myself on bringing the evidence with me. This time, when the company was first founded, all of Vivian's money had been embezzled by her unscrupulous relatives. The registration capital was supported by Henry and Margaret, who used their life savings. At the time of company registration, they gave the money to me to register it. Therefore, the true controlling shareholder of this company should be me. It was just that Vivian had been a powerful businesswoman all these years, and I was willing to be the man quietly supporting her from behind, so I fully entrusted the company to her. It seems Vivian had achieved some success over the years, making her completely forget whose company it actually was. When Vivian saw the document I presented, her face immediately changed. She looked at me in shock and said, You are not giving me any face at all. Don't forget, I'm your wife, the mother of your child." I smiled at her threatening words. Forget about being the mother of my child. I was so disgusted I wanted to kick the child out of the house too, so I looked at her with disdain and said, "Stop jumping around wildly. I'm telling you now, neatly hand over all your work, and pack your bags and get out as soon as possible." Vivian slammed the table in anger at my words, then looked outside the door and said, "Security. Quickly, get this crazy person out of here. And next time, be more careful with your work, don't let any riffraff in." With that, she gave me a dismissive glance from head to toe, filled with intense scorn. Seeing her stubborn refusal to admit defeat, I didn't want to get into a big commotion with Vivian, so I took out the company registration certificate and showed it clearly to everyone present. Once everyone saw that I was the controlling shareholder, they immediately started whispering. No wonder he dared to challenge her so openly. He really held Vivian's lifeline. There's a good show to watch today. Vivian usually acts arrogant, as if everyone owed her something. Now she's stunned, isn't she? Vivian heard all the gossip around her. She slammed the table in anger, stood up, and pulled me into the CEO's office. Before leaving, I didn't forget to put away my registration certificate. This was the crucial evidence for my fight against Vivian. After entering the CEO's office, Vivian glanced at me, let out a cold laugh, and said, "What do you want? How about I give you $1 million to transfer this company to me? The company only got to where it is because of me all these years. $1 million is more than enough." I smiled at her demeanor. It seemed I had hit a nerve. Otherwise, she wouldn't have brought me into the office alone to talk. However, I had already decided to divorce her. No matter what she said or did, I would never forgive her again. Thinking this, I relaxed completely, leisurely spinning in the executive chair, then stared at Vivian and said, "Aren't you divorcing me? Go on, get the divorce papers. I have proof of infidelity between you and Liam. So, you probably won't get much of our joint marital assets." A small sense of glee bubbled up inside me at the thought. I hadn't worried much about the company over the years, so in essence, Vivian had been working for me all this time. Vivian also realized this. She looked at me with a cold face and said, "Don't push your luck. Quickly sign the contract for me. This company is my life's work. I will absolutely not give it to you." I found her attitude uninteresting, so I stood up impatiently and said to her, "It seems you haven't thought things through yet. Come talk to me when you have." With that, I stood up, gave Vivian a deep look, and walked out without turning back. Just as I was about to exit the CEO's office, the door to the lounge behind me suddenly opened. I turned to look and saw Liam stomping out angrily, holding Lily's hand. He pointed at me with a contorted face, cursing loudly, "Ethan, you shameless freeloader. How dare you claim this company? What effort have you ever put in to talk to Vivian like that? Lily nodded in agreement beside him, then grabbed a glass nearby and threw it at me, viciously saying, "You bad guy, how dare you bully my dad? I'll beat you to death." I watched the glass flying towards me, and quickly dodged it. Seeing Lily, who kept acknowledging a stranger as her father, a chill went through me. I walked over, grabbed her collar, and said angrily, "Who gave you the guts to speak to your own father like that? Have you lost your mind?" With that, I grabbed her hair and dragged her outside. Vivian saw the scene unfold before her and immediately reached out, trying to stop me in fright. I quickly dodged her approaching hand, seized the opportunity, and slapped Lily hard. Seeing the red handprint on her face quickly swell, I smiled and said, "Next time, remember, if you don't know how to speak to your father, it won't be just a slap that solves it." With that, I turned and walked out of the CEO's office. Behind me, I heard Liam stamping his feet in a panic, tenderly blowing on Lily's face, and bitterly cursing at me. I looked back at them. The three of them looked more like a family than I did. It seemed my suspicions weren't unfounded. I looked down at the hair with follicles I had just pulled from Lily's head, then pulled out some of my own hair and put them together. Then I went to the paternity test center and paid a high price to have their staff expedite the process for me. After paying and completing the registration, I returned to Henry and Margaret's home and looked at them. Henry and Margaret didn't know about the mess between Vivian and me, but they genuinely loved Lily. After all, she was my only child for so many years. But now, my gaze darkened. I urged Henry and Margaret to pack their bags, arranged for 2 new SIM cards for them, and booked them a month-long global tour package. That afternoon, I saw Henry and Margaret off at the airport, watching the plane gradually disappear into the sky. I gritted my teeth and made a decision. I would personally settle accounts with Vivian. Back home, I packed up all her belongings from the room and sent them to Liam's house. Then I turned on the surveillance camera. I had secretly installed it under the desk yesterday. When I caused a scene at the company, the surveillance camera was aimed directly at the lounge door and could also pick up conversations at that moment. Embarrassing sounds came from behind the half-open lounge door. They continued for a minute before finally stopping. Then Vivian, lying on Liam, said, "That useless man actually dared to threaten me, but the company really is his. What should we do? He even dared to hit my Lily. I wish I could kill him." Liam panted and said, "All right, if that's what you want, then I'll kill him." With that, they stood up and walked out naked, then sat at the desk and drank a glass of water. I took in their entwined bodies on the surveillance camera. This was exactly what I needed, an opportunity handed to me. Now I had proof of her infidelity, and from their conversation, it sounded like they were conspiring to commit murder. So, I would bide my time and wait to trap them easily to find out their next moves. I hired 2 detectives to follow them separately. Soon, I received a call from the paternity test center. The paternity test report for Lily and me was ready. I immediately drove to the paternity test center. My hands were trembling as I received the report. When Lily was young, I was basically the one who raised her. She was always close to me since she was little, only growing distant after Vivian started keeping her by her side. I sat in the car and opened the report, staring at the small print at the bottom, unable to speak for a long time. As expected, Lily was not my biological child at all. She was most likely Vivian and Liam's child. It was a shame that all these years I had been raising someone else's child. Thinking about it now, I was pitifully foolish. I saved the physical report and immediately called a press conference. At the press conference, I directly presented my registration certificate and the paternity test report. Then, I publicly demanded an explanation from Vivian. The incident caused a sensation. All of the company's business activities came to a halt. No one was willing to cooperate with someone whose ownership was unclear. Vivian found me as soon as she found out. She looked at me, gritting her teeth, and said, "What do you want? Do you want to drive Lily and me to our deaths to be happy? This company is mine. You'd better transfer it to me willingly, or I won't let you off." With that, she hung up the phone. To clear herself of suspicion, she took Lily and Liam to the hospital for a blood test in front of everyone. She looked at the numerous media outlets grandly and said, "He insists that Liam is Lily's father, so I'll publicly undergo a paternity test." With that, she gestured for the nurse to draw a tube of blood from each of them for testing. Vivian smiled smugly. She thought she could bribe people with money to falsify the results for her, but she didn't know I had also paid the hospital staff. In this situation, whoever had financial leverage was in charge. Under my financial leverage, I secretly swapped Liam's blood back. After the paternity test was done, I took the remaining blood. My face had been looking sallow recently. If I couldn't find a suitable kidney source soon, I'd likely be gone. I wasn't willing for the first half of my life to have been spun around by them, so I desperately wanted to live. I secretly used his blood for an organ matching test with myself. After 2 days of anxious waiting, the results came in. Vivian, in front of the media, took out the medical report and pointed it at them, but the results showed that Lily and Liam were biologically related. Their lies were exposed, and I also received my organ matching report, which showed our compatibility was as high as 85.9%. I was ecstatic, holding the report. Liam's only use now was to provide me with a healthy kidney. The thought of my withered body soon receiving a brand new kidney filled me with uncontrollable excitement. To expedite the surgery, I brought in my top-tier legal team, and in conjunction with the shareholders, ousted Vivian from her position. Furthermore, I uploaded all the intimate videos of them from the lounge online, but I edited out the part about them conspiring to commit murder against me. My actions pushed them to their limit, so, on my way home, I was knocked unconscious with a baton and quickly passed out. When I opened my eyes again, I had been taken to Liam's house. To avoid being discovered, he decided to handle me himself. I had been waiting for this day for a long time. With excitement, I took out the small blade hidden in my fingernail and cut through the ropes. Then I took off the ropes, looped them around Liam's neck, and used them to smash his head against the wall. After 3 or 4 blows, Liam lay motionless on the floor. I took Liam into the underground garage and got into the car I had prepared earlier. He lived in an old, rundown building with no surveillance cameras nearby, which was why he had dared to kidnap me so brazenly. He just didn't know that I was the hidden player, waiting until the very end. Soon, we arrived at the illicit clinic, and both Liam and I were pushed into the operating room. When I opened my eyes again, a new kidney had already been transplanted into my body. I had finally reclaimed my life. The doctor beside me looked at me respectfully and said, "What should we do with Liam?" I had the nurse wheel me into Liam's hospital room. He had just opened his eyes. To avoid affecting my kidney, I had instructed the doctor to cut open his abdomen without anesthesia. Now, Liam felt the intense pain radiating from his body, combined with anxiety about his surroundings, and finally couldn't help but scream, "Is anyone there? Hurry, save me, I'm going to die." I pushed open the room door, looked at his pathetic state, smiled, and said triumphantly, "Liam, aren't you so formidable? How can you not even endure this little bit of pain?" Liam saw me, his eyes wide with shock, and said, "It's you. You kidnapped me. What did you do to me?" I scoffed, revealing the scar on my body, and said, "Didn't you so kindly donate a kidney to me? If it weren't for you, I'd be in critical kidney failure right now. I'd be long dead. You are my lifesaver." I deliberately emphasized the words lifesaver. Looking at Liam with a mocking gaze, a flicker of disbelief flashed in his eyes, but the intense pain radiating from his body made him realize with terrifying clarity that everything I said was true. Liam hadn't expected me to be so bold. He glared at me fiercely and said, "This is illegal. I'm going to call the police. I'm going to have them arrest you." I smiled at his resentful expression and said, "Do you think I'll just let you go easily? I'm no longer young. Many of my organs have issues. But you are different. You are still a university student. I'm going to extract every bit of youthful vitality from you." With that, I looked at the doctor beside me and said sternly, "Hold him down and take good care of him." The doctor nodded and walked towards him with a scalpel. Liam looked at the sharp scalpel and screamed, "Don't come here. Don't you come near me. Don't touch me. I'm calling the police. What you are doing is illegal." Too bad. No one would come to save him even if he screamed until his throat was raw. Under the doctor's swift actions, Liam's hand and foot tendons were severed, which meant he was completely crippled. Soon, the doctor transferred him to my secluded hillside villa, where I had already prepared a space for him. From now on, he would be my captive. After lying in the illicit clinic for 3 or 4 days, I returned home to recuperate. I had completely come to terms with things now. It was foolish not to spend money when you had it. Rather than benefiting others, I should benefit myself. Vivian had been driven out of my home. She had originally planned to take Lily and seek refuge with Liam, but Liam was silent now, and she thought he had abandoned her and Lily and run off. She could only humble herself and come beg me, as she stood at my doorstep, knocking incessantly. I was driving to the airport to pick up Henry and Margaret. After a month apart, the old couple looked much better on the way. I told Henry and Margaret all about Vivian's despicable acts, and also explained Lily's true parentage. Henry and Margaret had been traveling for a month, and their perspectives had changed significantly. So, although they felt a pang of pity, they decided to cut ties with Vivian and Lily. As the three of us got out of the car, Vivian immediately took Lily's hand and approached us, looking cautiously at Henry and Margaret and saying, "Henry and Margaret, I was wrong. Please give me another chance. I promise I'll live a good life with Ethan from now on." With that, she tugged at Lily's clothes. Lily immediately clung to Henry and Margaret's legs, sobbing hysterically and saying, "Grandpa Henry and Grandma Margaret, don't you love me anymore? I don't want to be separated from you. Please don't send Mom and me away." Henry and Margaret exchanged glances. If Lily had been my biological child, they might have considered letting Vivian stay for the child's sake, but she wasn't. Henry and Margaret coldly slapped their hands away, then looked at the mother and daughter with disdain and said, "That's enough. Both of you. Aren't you ashamed enough? The Miller family cannot afford to support people like you. Leave at once." With that, Henry and Margaret walked into the house. I smiled with satisfaction. Henry and Margaret were indeed supportive, so I quickly followed them. Walking into the house without looking back, behind me, I heard the painful wails of the mother and daughter, but I didn't care at all. After all, she was the one who betrayed me first. Everything happening now was her own doing. The next day, as soon as I woke up, I went to the company. Now that the company was back in Ethan's hands, his first order of business was to fire all of Vivian's loyalists. No matter who pleaded on their behalf, Ethan refused to budge. He would get rid of all her spies. She was still deluding herself, thinking she could rely on people within the company to help her return and wrestle power from Ethan. She didn't even consider if she was worthy. Ethan had someone approach her, and Vivian quickly took the bait. She was still dreaming of becoming the company's chairperson, unaware that she was walking straight into her personal hell. Soon, she received an invitation to a banquet. To impress everyone, she chose the most expensive outfit from the luggage Ethan had thrown out for her. She then strode into the banquet, as haughty as a swan. Before long, she was deep in conversation with an influential figure. Someone soon slipped her a key card, instructing her to wait in a room. After she left, Ethan walked over, holding a contract for the influential figure to sign. The influential figure signed without even glancing at it. He then looked up, giving Ethan a playful, knowing look, and said, quite ruthless, "Sending your own woman to my bed. You know, when my mood is high, if someone accidentally ends up dead, I won't be held responsible." Ethan looked at the influential figure, smiling ingratiatingly. "Don't worry, sir, I booked the room for tonight, and shares mine. Even if the sky falls, it won't concern you once you leave this room." The influential figure patted Ethan's shoulder in satisfaction, then chuckled, and walked out. Ethan sneered as he watched him leave. This influential figure was known for his fondness for attractive married women, so to appease him, Ethan had personally arranged for Vivian to be there. Vivian was still hoping to use the influential figure's power to strike back at Ethan and regain control of his company. But she had no idea that Ethan was the one truly leveraging the situation. The next day, the influential figure left before dawn. After he left the hotel, Ethan went to the room. Bloodstains were everywhere, and tissues and discarded baby items were scattered across the floor, on the bed. Vivian was barely breathing from the ordeal, and she had lost the baby. Ethan smiled as he looked at her condition. He wasn't afraid of her dying, he was afraid of her being unharmed, which would have meant the influential figure hadn't been interested in her. Ethan walked over, wiped the blood from her body, and then carried her back to Liam's apartment. Lily was locked in her room, crying hysterically from fear. Ethan felt no sympathy as he looked at her, only disgust, and he said, "Vivian, I got what I needed from you. For this deal, we're even now. You're on your own." With that, Ethan turned and left without looking back. It was then that Vivian realized Ethan had completely manipulated her. But now, penniless, she couldn't even contend with Ethan, let alone that influential figure. She was forced to barely survive in Liam's apartment. To support Lily, she resorted to giving strange men massages in her room. It wasn't long before she contracted a sexually transmitted disease, STD. Staring blankly at Lily, she ultimately chose to set fire to the room to end her life. After the firefighters extinguished the blaze, she and Lily were reduced to 2 charred remains. Upon hearing the news, Ethan personally visited the secluded hillside villa to inform Liam of the good news. He was now a shell of his former self, confined to his bed and dependent on others to feed him. Knowing that his beloved woman and child were dead, he had contemplated suicide, but unable to move, his only option was to attempt suicide by biting his tongue. Such a coward would never dare. In the end, he was destined to become Ethan's living organ bank. Ethan walked out of the secluded hillside villa, smiling as he watched the distant sunset. Fortunately, it wasn't too late. He could now fully indulge in his wonderful life.